Hello, Aman, and thank you so much for your time. Welcome to the Cloud Square podcast. I am Shashank. I'm your host for the session today, and uh, I would like to start off by asking if you could share a little bit about yourself and how has your journey been so far.
Yeah. Hey, Shashank, again. Thanks a lot for having me. It's really good to be here. So I'm Bahman. My name is Bahman, and I am originally from Iran. And it's been around 9 years, give or take, that I'm in the design field and basically working in a lot of different companies and different industries, from basically traveling agency to task management to gaming industry, food industry, and now I'm in the logistic industry. And so B2B, B2C, all those different areas that I have experience with, and here I am.
So, all the areas you explored, that's nice. But how did you start off? Like, what's your origin story like? Where did you come from, and how did you enter the market?
Yeah, so it's a really fun story, to be honest. The thing is, like, when I was a kid, I always had this passion for the arts in general, right? And like I was doing, even before university, when I was in even elementary school and basically high school, I did a lot of photography with my phone. And back then I had a Nokia N78, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so, like, doing like a lot of photography with that. It was actually really cool. Phone, actually a really good lens, so I could, like, take a lot of good photos. And like, on the other hand, I also had a strong passion. Even right now, I still have that, for the technology in general. So at some point, I try to figure out how can I merge these, or how can I combine these two areas of passion, like, arts and technology, right? So when I was like, in the beginning, I attended the graphic design at the university. So it was like, pure and fine art, right? So there was no technology in that. Although that nowadays, like, obviously there is, but back then there wasn't. Like, it was like all printing graphic design. So it was like,
Physical
um,
stuff.
there was no technology. Exactly, yeah. And so, when I was a student, I basically try to figure out a way, and if there's like anything that I can pursue my passion, like, have both art and technology all together. And then I came across with the title. Back then it was like, user interface, user experience. I wasn't sure what does that mean, and I'd, like, explore further and try to understand, like, what it is, and what basically what's the area in detail. And then I realized that it exactly matches my passion and my interest, which is basically a combination of art and technology. And basically, but I mean, nowadays, my perspective on that is a little bit different, because I don't think well, it's a really strange thing to say, but I don't think that UI UX design or product design in general is an art.
Okay.
Maybe some people disagree with me, but I feel like it's more like an engineering rather than art, right? So it's basically close to that area. And but this is basically how I get started with this, and how I, like, introduce. And I started with, like, self-study, going through a lot of different courses back then. I think it was in 2014, 13, 14 ish, that there was a lot of courses, like online courses, like, self studies back then. So it's like getting access to those resources was really difficult. But still, yeah, I had a chance to, like, go through, some basic courses, and then later on I get introduced to the Google UX design course, in which I think it's also available right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically this is how I got started.
Yeah, I think you pointed out about the UX design industry being more of not related to art aspect. I think it's also something that I would consider in terms of layouting, and mathematics also involves in it. So more of a structured kind of art thing. UI can also be like considered some form of art.
Yeah, I mean, at some like in general, just like I said, it's really leaning closer to the engineering rather than art. Because like when you talk about art, it's like pure creativity and pure innovation, right? I'm not saying like in UX and UI design there's no innovation or there's no creativity, but the form is different, right? So when you talk about art, and obviously things like painting, music, and these sort of fine arts, uh, you know, comes to mind initially, but um, you need to where basically in art in things like painting or music you can do basically everything, right? But in UI UX design there are some principles and there are some guidelines where you cannot deviate, and if you do then obviously you
It
will
breaks the
most
flow.
likely mess up, yeah, you will most likely mess up the product. And there's this thing that you're creating which will be served and which will be used by possibly millions of other people, whereas the things like paintings or music is something that
That's more.
you don't create for someone else, or you don't create for a group audience, but just create it for yourself. And then later on, like at some point, some other people will start to like it, or feel the connection and all. So that's the difference between. That's why I'm saying like the product design, although that is design in the word, but it's a little bit
It's
far from the
practical.
arts, and it's closer. Exactly, it's closer to the engineering.
So you talked about your journey and starting off in the design career and starting from Iran. What were some of the early career lessons that shaped your design and product thinking that still continue to shape your thinking?
Yeah, so the very first thing that I noticed when I was working in a company really early in my career, and I was a junior designer there, and one thing that I noticed is like, and it's something that Google currently is using as the core principle, right? So when you're designing something, when you're designing a product, you have to always keep the users in mind, and obviously you have to always prioritize the user's requirements and user's needs. Which what I mean by that is like, um, obviously yes, one of the core responsibilities of the product designer is to have a, or basically make a balance between the user need and also the business requirements. But what I'm like, when you look at it at a different perspective, what business actually wants is like obviously to sell more, have more higher revenues, and all that. So this
Conversions.
exactly, this is one thing that all the businesses want,
Yeah.
obviously. And then but when you focus purely on the users, and when you focus purely on the user's requirement, then what happens is like users start to like the product that you're designing more, and you start to basically introduce it, or share it with other people, and therefore the result of that will be like higher revenue and like more income for the business.
Mhm.
So when you're focusing purely on the users, then you would also eventually serve the business requirement at the same time as well. So that is the core thing that I learned, is like whatever you do and whatever you design have to be towards the direction of the user's requirement, and you have to make sure that basically this is something that I ask myself all the time, like whatever changes that I'm like designing in a product, I ask myself like what's the value of this change, and what's the or basically how does this make the user's life easier, and how does this um, yeah, basically make them to like the product more and basically use the product more. What's the value of this, right? And if I have an answer to that, then I will move forward with it, obviously, and because like there's a strong reason and answer behind it. But if I'm hesitant a little bit and if I don't have an answer, then I take a step back and look at it again just to make sure that what I'm or the direction that I'm moving forward and heading is towards the user's need first. So exactly like Google says, like, users come first and everything else will follow.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Um, but then, yeah, you told me about you were starting off in your journey. Then I think you also, like before you landed in Germany, I think you also went to Netherlands for a while as well. And then how did you make the transition from the countries?
Yeah, it was really hard to be honest. Like a lot of from cultural differences to work environment differences, to even like language
Mhm.
differences and all that. Obviously, because when I was working in Iran, my primary language was Persian.
Persian.
Now I had to switch to English, and obviously like English is not my primary language, and I think yours as well.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, and like for non English speakers, it's always difficult because you constantly have to translate in your head first, and then so it was a real big challenge for me. But what actually motivated me and what excited me at that time was actually exactly this, right? To get out of my comfort zone and try to basically challenge myself and to see how I would deal with it.
Mhm.
And obviously there was a lot of lessons learning at that time when I joined New Zoo. At that time was a Dutch company, and I learned a lot from myself, from my work, and also from the others that are basically from my colleagues that I was working in that company. And so it was really difficult in a nutshell. But like from moving from Netherlands to Germany was not that much
Mhm.
of a difference, basically, because I was already like familiar with like working in an international company and all that, and so I was already familiar with all of that. So it wasn't as difficult as I was moving from Iran to Netherlands, but still, I think the challenge that I faced in HelloFresh was entirely different than I was having in New Zoo, and that made it actually exciting because, like in New Zoo, I was the only designer
Mhm.
in the team. I was working as a solo designer, whereas in HelloFresh, the team was much bigger, and the designers, like there were like around 12 designers in the team. And so basically collaborating with the other designers, learning from them, and also working with them was another challenge that
Mhm.
basically excited me at the time.
Mhm. Like I'm curious about how when you were joining HelloFresh, how did you approach like the application process and how did you approach the job search and what was the strategy around it?
Yeah, so we were actually talking about, I think, around 4 years ago, and so things, as you know, things were like in a whole different world, and now we're now we're in a whole different world where things have changed a lot.
Mhm.
And so the interview, or basically the job searching process, was quite tough, I would say, actually compared to that time, where I had to like send multiple applications to different companies. And what I did obviously first was to prepare my resume and also prepare my portfolio, make sure that I have all the case studies that basically represents me, and also represents my skills and learnings throughout my career, and also where I want to go next in my career. And so these things were really important for you to basically, when you want to start looking for another role, when you want to go into the job market again. And so yeah was quite challenging to basically find the position that I'm looking for in the company that I'm looking for specifically. But the interview process itself for HelloFresh, this was quite smooth, I would say. And I, yeah, basically met the recruiter, met my hiring manager, and also presented one of my case studies to yeah, basically to the design leaders there. And also I met the stakeholders, some of the stakeholders as well during the interview process. So went overall, it went really smooth, but it was really competitive, especially in HelloFresh, because it's really a big company.
Yeah.
And but yeah, but I made it at the end. So
Yeah, good for you. That was, yeah, very insightful. So like, since you have been working for so many years, what is your insider perspective on the current situation of the design market?
oh well, it's a tough one because like things are changing pretty much every day, right? With the AI, with the inflations, and then the job market itself. And so it's really important for you to like, or for everybody who wants to look through another job. It's really important to really understand the current job market and to understand like what is actually required right now, right? And basically what I was, because like a few months ago I also moved from HelloFresh to another company. It's called Forto. And when I was, looking for another role, one thing that was really important for the companies, which was not the case before, was your knowledge on the AI in general. And so, like, how many tools have you worked with? How do you basically utilize AI in your process, in your design process? And yeah, basically, whether if you actually know how to work with the AI in general, because obviously AI, like working with AI tools, increases efficiency of your workflow a lot, and so it's really important for the companies so that they will basically hire someone who knows how to work with the AI tools. And I think right now is also the same, and also is also the case where I would imagine what is important for the companies who wants to basically hire a designer is at least like maybe not top priority for some companies, but at least like top five priorities, I would say, or top three priorities is is for the candidate to know how to work with the AI. And like one thing that I notice, and like I'm currently also experiencing, is like the way that I see the future of the design career is like it's not like UI designer, UX designer anymore. It's also not like the product designer anymore, where you basically go through the double diamond design process: discovery, basically discovery, definition, design, and delivery. And I think so I think the process is changing slowly, and I wouldn't, to be honest with you, I wouldn't surprise if in the future I see like roles like product designer and product managers sort of merge together and become one role, because obviously like using all of those different AI tools, then yeah, you would be able to basically cover those two responsibilities in just one role. So
It can transform into more like AI assisted designer, maybe.
well, yeah, it could be. I mean, I'm not sure about the title exactly, but I would imagine that something like that will happen. Then obviously we wouldn't have something like a UI designer anymore, because obviously you can with Cursor or tools similar to that, you can easily design, or with just writing some prompts, you can design, or you can build a whole tool, a whole product by yourself. And so yeah, I would imagine that a similar thing would happen, and basically some roles would be merged together. Even right now, like in Forto, for example, what we're doing is like we're utilizing Cursor for some smaller related, small UI changes. And what happens is like, we don't write ticket for engineers anymore. And we just, do it ourselves, the designers. We just do it ourselves in the Cursor, like, make those changes, and then, yeah, create a pull request and then send it to the engineers. exactly, and then have the engineers to review the pull request, and then basically if they, if everything was okay, then they will merge the branch to the main, and then so yeah, that's why I'm saying that I wouldn't be surprised if the roles, change at the core, because obviously the ways of working is changing with the AI tools.
So then, how would you imagine the realistic impact of these AI tools, and how would you suggest people to like? How do you keep up with so many tools coming every other day?
It's hard. It's really hard, to be honest. I mean, we see a lot of, like, pretty much every day we see like a new tool coming, we see a new LLM coming out, and like, new updates pretty much every day. And so I understand it's really hard to to basically keep yourself updated. And in fact, I mean, ironically, this is something that I'm working on currently as as basically to create something, or to create maybe a tool, for example, to solve this issue, where it's basically so that you can, I don't know, for example, use that tool to make sure that you are updated to the latest, versions, latest tools, technologies, and everything, and make sure you don't, like, feel left out, basically. So this is something that I'm currently working on, and I'm really, passionate about it, because this is my, one of my concerns, basically, to feel left out. And this is something that I struggle pretty much every day. And I understand maybe this is also something that, most of the people will also struggle nowadays. So yeah,
So
see
then,
how it goes.
how do you keep up with the all the news and updates? Do you have a flow?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't rely on a single source personally. And so yeah, I mean, things like, communities on, social networks, like, X, Telegram, or like all these different communities. I follow all of them, like, on a daily basis. I also basically, when I try to, for example, create something, or when I try to, do something in my work, what I do is, like, just to make sure that I don't feel left out, and I, like, basically try to keep myself updated. What I do is, like, I broaden my search or research on, like, everything that I do pretty much, so that I, also explore different tools. So for example, if I don't know, a simple example would be like, if I work with Gemini, for example, I, try, Claude as well. I try, ChatGPT as well, just to, explore and also see the differences, and also get to decide which one makes the most sense. And I also, like, explore the different capabilities, functionalities. Yeah, this is how I, keep myself updated. But again, like, it's not a single act, or it's not a single source where I, use to keep myself. So it's basically a combination of multiple factors that I try to at least, keep myself updated.
Were you aware about the recent hype around Claude Code, and recently there have also been Google Stitch that came into the picture, and like it's killing all the design career. Every day there's a hype, new thing.
Exactly. So I think, like, I mean, with Google Stitch, and I think, like, Lovable is also an old, like, at least older than Google Stitch. These tools, I think they're really doing a really good job. But I think in corporate, these are not, in my opinion anyway, these are not usable, at least for now, right? What is what is using in what is being used in corporate is tools like Cursor, where you can basically build on top of what you have already. And so, because if you use, like, for example, for an existing tool, if you start to use, like, Lovable or Google Stitch, it's not working as it's intended, because, like, you already have, like, a set of library, or basically a set of, pages, or, components. But then if you want to, use Stitch or Lovable, then it's basically building from scratch. And then, like, building from scratch, it's really hard to basically match all of those what you have basically versus what is being created. So that's why I think tools like Cursor comes in the picture really well for for the corporate who already have a tool or a product where you can build easily on top of what is already existing.
Yeah, that's very important, I think, to realize what tools exactly help us in the industry and what is the hype around on social media. Those are two very different things these days, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, say
yeah,
I
exactly.
also,
So for example,
yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
sorry,
sorry.
I
You can
wanted
carry
to
on.
add basically something. Yeah, so I think like Google Stitch and Lovable, these tools are really good in creating a quick prototypes in a really interactive prototypes really quickly. I myself I used Figma Make, for example, just to basically quickly build some pages or basically quickly build a flow, interactive flow, so that I can provide it to the users and basically conduct a usability test. So these tools are really good for those purposes. But I think like for developing and yeah, further implementing new features or developing an existing tool, yeah, I think these tools are still quite not there yet.
Hmm. Yeah, it's very, very helpful to be aware about what tools are exactly where we should focus on. So, right, moving on to the
Yeah.
next question, I learned that you have also been mentoring people on ADP list, young designers. So, what are some of the like mistakes you observe designers make these days, and like how should they position themselves for this constantly evolving market?
Yeah, so my core focus, up until now at least, on ADP list was to basically mentor the designers who are looking for another role and who want to basically evolve in their career and also take the next step. And so what I do mostly is to basically review their CVs and portfolios and basically help them to understand the market and help them to basically go in there and find their desired role and in the job market. But so one one of the mistakes that I observe in during my sessions is um, well, obviously I think it's understandable because it's more around disappointment when they get multiple rejection, and they would be like, well, no, it's not going to work and all. And one thing that I notice is people tend to focus less on basically identifying what's causing all of these rejections, and basically thinking that maybe the market is not good, maybe the companies are not hiring and all that. Whereas things like or situations people send some applications to some companies, but then they get rejected for many times. But then they have to think about or basically explore and identify what's causing this rejection. And sometimes it's, for example, the CV, so you have to basically change the structure of the CV. Sometimes it's portfolio, so you have to make some changes to that portfolio. But less people tend to focus on that and basically they'll focus more on
Blaming the
yeah
market.
maybe exactly, yeah, they or being disappointed. So but I think when it comes to the design process, I think it's really important for the current designers at least to uh, to basically make sure that they know how to utilize AI in their work, because I think it's really important. And and corporates and companies, they're focusing even more and more as we move forward, and relying more on the AI tools and relying more on someone who can work with these AI tools. So it's really important for the designers to get themselves familiar with all these tools and know how to work with them and know how to utilize them. And and then basically that way then they can keep themselves updated, and obviously most of the corporates and companies will want them for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very important and insightful because I personally was also myself in that kind of a situation, and obviously you helped me as well during that time. So yeah, I know firsthand what it feels like to get all those rejection emails and then feel low in yourself, and then you have to keep pushing yourself to still keep going and do better. Yeah, so one of the last questions that
Exactly.
I would like to ask you is about your work. Like basically, how do you, in your general workflow, balance creativity and like working with systems and design systems, and also managing the business impact? So keeping all of those things in mind, how do you process and balance them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So um, I think it really depends on the situation that we're talking about, right? Because sometimes, like at least based on the situations and the experience that I have, sometimes you have to make a trade-off, and you have to basically analyze the situation and understand basically what's the trade-off, and where where you need to go next, for example. And what I mean by that is like imagine this situation where there's a trade-off that you have to basically there's a business requirement that if you pursue that, then you will keep some user needs off in your radar, and basically that's one of the trade-offs that I'm talking about. And I think by that, then you need to understand, if you do that and if you go down that road, then what will be the consequences and what happens next as a result. So in general, I think it depends on the situation, and it depends on what initiatives you're taking. And I think what's important is to understand and basically map out different flows and different routes of basically whatever you do, and to try to realize which one makes the most sense. And then aware of all those trade-offs, then you basically pursue that. And right now, using all these AI tools, I think it's even easier now to basically analyze that, because you have a, I would say, like a really senior person, assistant basically in your hand. The only thing is you know how to work with it, because if you do, then it's gonna massively help you in any way, and it's gonna basically using that you can make the right choice and make the right decision all the time.
So think of AI as your assistant and not like just rely on it. But like, should designers also be scared of AI taking away their jobs?
It's not gonna it's not gonna happen, in my opinion, anytime soon. The only thing is, if, especially I think for the UI designers, if there are UI designers still out there, one of my suggestions, one of my biggest recommendation, is to reconsider your role, and to basically think of how you can evolve your role as a next step, right? Because I think the first thing that the UI or the AI will take is the UI design.
Okay.
Because basically UI design is currently not design system, by the way, because design system designer is something that still AI cannot do. But think of it this way: that there is a design system, there is a tool. I mean, you have a library, and you have a tool, and you have a concept that you want to build, and AI can build that concept using the library that you have, using the existing library, in just a few seconds, right? So, and this is something this is one of the responsibilities of the UI designer. And so I think obviously with that, then corporates need UI designers less and less in the future. And so that's why I think people should reconsider their role and think of how their role can be evolved in the future, or think of how they can utilize AI tools, so that they don't feel left out. Because if that happens, then most like most likely they would lose their job, unfortunately.
So, in your opinion, design thinking is something that we should be focusing on rather than just creating those screens. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
I hope this video ages well over time when we come back to it, watching this again after 5 years. So,
I don't
let's.
know, and I mean, I feel like it. I mean, things not even in 5 years, and I think in years things will be quite, different, completely different than what we are talking about right now. So, yeah.
So yeah, I think on that high positive note, we would like to conclude this session today. It was very insightful and like wonderful to have you over. I would like to thank you for your time, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for saying. Thanks a lot for having me, and it was really insightful for me as well.
Thank you so much, Maman.